In this video, I'll demonstrate how to work with anti-malware. Anti-malware is software that will try to detect, catch, and maybe quarantine or remove malicious software, whether that be in the form of a worm, a Trojan, or a virus attached to a file, and so on. And it's critical that we have anti-malware software up to date on every device on the network, including smartphones. Here in Windows 10, I'm going to go ahead and launch the Windows Defender anti-malware, although there are many different vendors that offer solutions. Here I can see that real-time protection is turned on. So that means not only will it scan for malware on either a manual or a scheduled triggered basis, but it's always watching what's happening on the machine, whether I'm opening email file attachments or opening files from inserted USB thumb drives and so on. I can also see that the virus and spyware definitions are up to date on this machine. Down below, I can also see when the last scan was conducted. Here it says September 14th, 2016, and it was just a quick scan. Over on the right, I can manually trigger a quick, full, or customized scan on demand. So for example, if I were to choose custom and choose scan now, I can then choose which drives and folders that I want to scan. However, I'm going to cancel that. Under the Update tab, we can see here our virus and spyware definition database is up to date, and we can see the date and time at which that applies. We can also see the specific version of our virus and spyware definitions, which can be important when troubleshooting. Now we also have a button here where we can manually click on Update Definitions. Under the History tab, we'll have a history of any quarantined, allowed, or detected items. Here I'm going to choose All Detected Items, and I'll click the View Details button. Here we can see at one point it detected a Trojan on this machine. The alert level was severe. This is the date on which it was detected, and then of course it was quarantined. Now at this point I do have the option, of course, of removing that Trojan from this host. In this particular software, Windows Defender, we can also click on the settings link in the upper right. And when I do that, it spawns the update and security settings here in Windows 10. Where real-time protection can be turned on or off, where cloud-based protection can be turned on or off. So the cloud-based protection will send information about detected malware on our computer to Microsoft. We also have the option, if we scroll further down, and we do in every anti-malware type of solution, we can exclude certain types of files or folders that we know will trigger a false positive. So I could exclude a file or a folder. Here I've got a folder I've excluded where I've got some live hacks stored for testing purposes. We can also exclude certain file types or individual processes. Larger networks will work with anti-malware from a centralized tool. In this case, we're looking at System Center Configuration Manager 2012, where we've already gone to the Assets and Compliance workspace in the bottom left. Well, on the left-hand navigator, I'm going to expand Endpoint Protection. System Center Endpoint Protection, often referred to as EP, is the anti-malware solution included with SCCM, although it must be licensed separately. So notice here on the left, we can click on Anti-Malware Policies, and on the right, any anti-malware policies that were created, of course there's a default one, will be listed. So for instance, I'm going to go ahead and double-click on the default client anti-malware policy to open up its settings. Where on the left, if I click Scan Settings, on the right I see scan settings, such as whether we should be scanning email and attachments, or removable devices like USB drives, or should we scan network drives when conducting a full scan, should we scan archived files, and so on. Now also, we can click Real-Time Protection over on the left to determine whether real-time scanning is turned on and exactly how that is configured. We have exclusion settings. Under Advanced over here, we can determine whether a system restore point should be taken on clients before the machine is cleaned, and so on. So finally, the last thing we'll talk about with this solution is the definition updates over here on the left, where we can determine exactly by clicking the Set Source button where the updates come from and how often they are applied. So really, we're doing the same kind of thing that we could do on a single station, the difference being that we're doing it centrally, and it could potentially apply to thousands of computers. Because here in SCCM, when I right-click on a policy, now the default client policy doesn't give me the option to deploy it to a specific collection, but if I've built a custom policy, I can determine, by choosing Deploy, exactly which collections that these anti-malware settings will apply to. The default settings apply to all devices managed by this SCCM site. So there are enterprise class tools to centrally work with things like anti-malware. And of course, if I go to the monitoring workspace over here on the left, and if I expand reporting and reports in the left-hand navigator, I'll see that I have some report categories, some of which are related to working with things like malware. So for example, if I were to click on reports and then click the search bar at the top and simply type in malware to search for reports that have that term in it, we can see we've got a number of anti-malware reports that we can run. Now, what about zero-day exploits, those that aren't yet known to the system owner or vendors of hardware and software, but of course are known to malicious users? Well, there are different tools we can use to mitigate those types of problems. Here, I've installed and launched the Enhanced Mitigation Experience Toolkit, or EMIT. This is a free Microsoft tool. Let's go ahead and expand it and work with it a little bit. The overall purpose of this tool is to prevent vulnerabilities in our software configurations, whether it's operating system or apps, from being exploited, even though there might not be a specific exploit signature for this type of activity. Here in the bottom screen of Emmet, we can see the list of running processes and whether or not they are running Emmet. So we can see none of them are. We see a list of running processes on this host. So what we're going to do then is click the Apps button up in the toolbar where we can add an application that we want Emmet to monitor. We can see some standard apps here like iExplore.exe for Internet Explorer, WordPad, Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Access, Publisher, and so on. What I'm going to do is click the Add Application button way up at the top, and we're going to go here into Drive C on this machine. We're going to go to Program Files, and we're going to scroll down and go into 7-zip, where we're going to choose the 7z.exe program to make sure that we monitor it for any kind of vulnerability exploits. 7-zip is a compression tool. I'm going to go ahead and click Open, and we can see that 7-zip has been added, and most of the check marks for these mitigations are enabled. For example, ASR stands for Attack Surface Reduction. ASR really is concerned primarily with things like browser plugins, things related to Java plugins, PDF Reader plugins, or Flash plugins. EAF over here on the left stands for Export Address Table Access Filtering. What this allows Emmet to do is to capture any Windows API calls that are triggered from potentially harmful or suspicious locations, such as an active script running on a web page. So besides just anti-malware, we can also use tools such as Microsoft Enhanced Mitigation Experience Toolkit to prevent bad things from happening on a device.